I think that if a whole group of people have a problem with the use of the word, I think we have to examine that, and I think it definitely should be taken into consideration by the owners. I don't own a team. I think there are great names out there, you know, buckets, shoes, you know, I don't know, buckle, I don't know. I think that if it's offensive to people, and we have to look at the people as a whole, then, you know, why not? But that's just me. That's only my opinion. I can't speak for other people.
It's not like I have a great answer. But I tell you, the disconnect a lot is when people are unable to put themselves in other people's shoes. And there's, you know, I have been guilty of that in my own mind. And young go, well, what would be the problem with Redskins? I mean, is that really a problem? And I couldn't put myself in certain instances in other people's shoes. And when you do that, you realize that you just can be making a giant mistake about how they think about themselves. And it's an awful thing, because you can end up trivializing other people. Like, what's wrong with Redskins? Can't we just move on? And no, it is a much bigger deal to people. I did make this movie, Dance with the Wolves, and it's not like I had big answers, except my answers were that I was going to try to make fully formed people. And so I'll tell you a little story. I was scouting Dance with the Wolves, and a man said, "Hey, would you have lunch here in the Hilton Hotel upstairs?" And I was scouting, and I said, "Man, I don't eat in the Hilton Hotel. I eat at the A&W, and I keep scouting." And he goes, "It was in South Dakota. Would you just do this? There might be some people or something." I looked at my friend, and I said, "Okay." So we walked upstairs, and I walked into a room, and there was a table in a U, a very formal table, and there was my book, Dances with Wolves. At each chair, there was like 15 chairs, and there was a pencil, and there was water, and I had mud all over me. And I walked in, and it was all the Indian leaders in South Dakota were in there. No one told me this. And so now I was confronted by 10 or 12 Native American people. And they wanted to know how I was going to do this movie. I'm 33 years old, 34, and I looked at them, and I said, first off, everybody grabbed the book, because it had kind of a harlequin, muscle-bound guy on the cover. Somebody had distorted that story that my friend wrote in my house. And I said, everybody grab it and rip off the page. And they all looked at me, and I said, no, rip it off. And they all ripped it off. I said, throw it on the floor. I said, second off, I'm not asking any of your opinions how to make this movie. I don't need any of you. I said, I'm not here to set the record straight. I'm not here to reinvent history. And I said, you've been lied to plenty. So no matter what I tell you is not going to mean anything to you. I'm just going to make the story the way I feel. I said, I'm glad now I'm paying for 15 lunches. And I said, I mean no disrespect, but I'm going to hire only Native Americans to be in my movie, because that's what I'm going to do, not because you're in the room. And so I have a real love of that situation. But when the question's posed to me about the Redskins, there's half of me in my life that goes, what's the big deal? But then there's half of me that's also experienced the pain that another culture has seen as a result of my own culture, my own immigrants that came across the ocean. And it is a big deal. And it takes a level of education. It takes education from me. And sometimes, if it's that big a deal, like Octavia said, then we should drop the name. But it took a long time for me to get there. I have empathy for people. but obviously not enough that my first instinct was, yeah, get rid of the name. Get rid of the name. I have a journey myself, you know, and so as I listen to this argument unfold, it does seem like there's an inordinate amount of pain attached with it. And so if we consider ourselves Americans, that means we're in this together. And then, so out of that comes, yeah, I guess we should drop that name and we should move on. It's just a football team. The problem is, sometimes sitting in a chair like this, people think you're Solomon. And I know that you don't think of me that way. I didn't probably score very high in my SATs. I don't sometimes grasp the biggest issues out there. I've always been a plodder. I've had to learn my own way. And my life is an example of how I live and what I've done. And oftentimes when some of the most complicated issues come up, I don't know what I'm going to say, just like Whitney. But if you give me a chance, I'll write a speech 2 weeks later and I'll tell people how I really feel. But I often don't know when the hot light hits me and people think, oh, something brilliant's going to come out. It's difficult. And what we wish other people could let pass, they can't, because it's too big and it's too important. And when this country was formed, Indians couldn't vote, blacks couldn't vote, women couldn't vote, and people who didn't own property couldn't vote. No wonder we look like what we look like today. That all has eroded. Will we all live to see this, to see the finish line move? I don't know, but you showed up today to see the movie, and I thank you for that. And when movies are really working at their best, you tell somebody about them. And so thank you for coming. I have a lot to learn in my life, and I'm trying all the time. I'm trying all the time, and some of the stuff I get right, and some of the stuff I don't. But I'm willing to change almost on everything. Jefferson said, in matters of style, you know, go with the flow. In matters of principle, stand like a rock.